Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome. Friday, September the 29th, 2023. Hope you're all doing well. Chris Phillips here, your host of the Daily Crow of the Spurs Up Show. TGIF indeed. I see Bradley Miller, Travie, Hunter Kelly, Ethan K, Bo Daddy. What's going on? Also those in the Big Cock Club Discord. Head over to the TDC Questions channel. The TDC Questions channel to be sure your questions are answered there. Guys, we have got a jam-packed show for you here on this Friday because, of course, it is Friday Mailbag Day, which is basically just the Q&A power hour condensed into one day. We are taking your questions, your comments, your calls as well at 843-790-3377. And we will open up those phone lines here in just a second. So today's show will go like this. In our second hour, normally on Fridays, we'll just have Jake Crain, but we're double dipping with our guest today at 1 o'clock sharp. We've got our good friend Jake Crain of Crain and Company. Then at 1:30 or 1:35-ish, we've got Marc Ryan on to close out the show. So really excited to have not just one, but two guests in our second hour. And this first hour, guys, it's all for you. Wide open. 843-790-3377. Leave your questions, your comments, and, of course, call that number because we want to hear from you here on this Friday. Your thoughts, your opinions, your comments, your predictions, your keys to victory, whatever it might be. I want to hear from you all on the phone lines and in the comments as well. Guys, do not forget the A1 Air Quality Consultants post-game call-in show will air right here, take place after the game tomorrow night, immediately following the clock striking 0 in Knoxville. We'll go live and just react to everything that took place under the lights at Neyland and take your questions, comments, and, of course, your calls in that. It's been electric thus far, guys. Appreciate all of you who have tuned in, who have called in especially, and looking forward to tomorrow night. I think it should be a really, really fun one. Either way, guys, that being said, we'll go ahead, open up the phone lines. As I mentioned, Marc Ryan and Jake Crain, both in hour number 2 of our show. Looking forward to chatting with both those guys, talking all things SEC, Gamecocks, college football, everything in between. But again, the phone lines are now open for you all at 843-790-3377. I see Brendan M. He says, let's get it. What's going on, Brendan? Ethan K. says, close game, high scoring. Rattler continues playing well. Other receivers step up and we win a close game, 34-31. Let's jump to the phone lines here. Justin, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, Chris. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I appreciate you asking. What's on your mind?
Hear me? Yep. Hey, Chris. I didn't talk to you this week because I was so busy with Gamecocks sports, you know.
Yeah, no, I trust you, man. I know it's been a long week, I know, with no calls, but glad to hear from you, man. How are you feeling about the game tomorrow?
I feel pretty good, Chris. Yes, I did listen to Shabier's press conference the show yesterday. He said the defense cannot give a big pass, you know, Chris.
Yeah, South Carolina is actually the worst in college football, or one of the worst in the SEC, I should say, but one of the worst in college football at number of explosive plays they've given up in the passing game thus far this season. So, yeah, it's something that's got to get corrected, no doubt. And, Tennessee and Josh Heupel, they're going to try to exploit that, especially with the arm strength of Joe Milton winning battles over the top. But that's definitely going to be a key to the game for sure, Justin, is limiting those explosive plays.
Yeah, I agree too. And Chris, don't take nothing for Will Wise. He did destroy the defense, you know.
Indeed. No, indeed. That I think South Carolina can take a lot from that Georgia game, the way they started, that second half comeback by Georgia, learn from that, and hopefully carry that into this football game. Justin, I appreciate the call, man. We're going to keep it moving here. Again, questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. That is 843-790-3377 here on this Friday. TGIF indeed. I saw Spurrier enthusiasm in the Discord as well. Again, guys, join the Big Cock Club today. You see the hat, by the way. Join the BCC, patreon.com/Big Cock Club. We will be in the Big Cock Club Discord watching college football all day tomorrow. Looking forward to that and hanging out with you guys
Robbie Davis
in the hangout. Here we go. Robbie, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and give you my prediction and get off of here because I know the phone's probably going to be ringing off the hook. But my prediction is South Carolina 38, Tennessee 31. And my key to the game is keeping Tennessee's offense off the field.
Okay.
Like you said earlier this week, an offense cannot hurt you if they're sitting on the sideline twiddling their thumbs. Okay, so that's my key to the game, and I have a feeling that Sanders, that defensive lineman for us, I think he's gonna have a good game tomorrow. I have a feeling he's gonna have a good game tomorrow, but if our secondary doesn't do well tomorrow, we're going to be in for a long day.
Indeed. Hey, 38-31 Gamecocks, Robbie. I would take that for sure. So I hope your prediction comes right versus mine, no doubt.
Yeah. So that's all I got, and I will try to call in on tomorrow night.
Hope to hear from you, Robbie. Should be a good time, man. Again, fingers crossed that your prediction comes true, my friend. I appreciate you.
All right. You too, buddy.
All right. Take care. Robbie Davis says 38-31. Gamecocks, 38-31. What say you? What say you? 38-31. I would take that in a heartbeat. South Carolina getting the W. Would take that in a heartbeat, no doubt. Here we go. We'll keep it moving. Jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Michael.
Michael, what's going on? You're on the air.
Hey, Chris. Enjoying the show, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Looking forward to tomorrow's game. I was thinking about this game and how eerily similar it is to 2009 when we played those guys up there. They wore the black jerseys. Night mode, I was at that game. It was raining. It was miserable because we did not play very well. And I know they're expecting that kind of same atmosphere. Little fun fact here. Do you know who the leading rusher was for Tennessee that night?
I'm assuming it was Montario Hardesty.
It was Montario Hardesty. So I hope he gets his running back room ready this time to be on the opposite end of that deal and upset this time around. Feed Mario. Give Mario the ball. Agree with you. Let him run inside the 20s and let DK carry it in the red zone. So we'll see if he has them ready.
Yeah, South Carolina going to need that running game for sure, my friend. I appreciate the call, Michael.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, man. Take care. And again, I agree with the caller, man. It's you're going to need that balance. You know, we talk about that a lot, obviously, but you're going to need some sort of balance to help out Spencer Rattler. You know, I think this is going to be arguably because of the environment, the atmosphere. You could say this is going to be Spencer Rattler and this offense's toughest task to date. I mean, really, truly, with the way that Tennessee gets after the quarterback. And I'm not saying that Tennessee has a more talented defensive front than Georgia, but I mean, one of the things we talked about going in that Georgia game was the fact that, you know, Georgia had not done a good job of getting after the quarterback. And so you look at Tennessee, they don't have that struggle. And I know you'll say, well, they haven't played anybody. What are you talking about? Well, guys, Georgia had played nobody either, and they still couldn't get after the quarterback. So, I mean, you got to give some credit where credit's due, right? So that's I think it's going to be a challenge, no doubt. I think this is a game, guys. I want to expand on the prediction as well because some people are just still looking at me like I'm crazy, looking at me like I'm sideways, and they don't understand how I could pick a 45-31 or even just a loss to Tennessee in general. Again, all of the good feelings I had going into last weekend because the game was at Willie B and at home, at night, the home crowd atmosphere and the energy and that being sort of the thing to push you over the edge and to turn a 50-50 game into a 60-40 game. Well, now that is on the opposite side. Like now that's all going against you. So you cannot sit here. Like here's the thing you can't do. You can't sit here and say, man, when South Carolina plays at home at night at Willie B, it's the difference maker. How dare you pick against us at home? Like that's we always win at home, and then not give credit to the fact that all of a sudden South Carolina is fighting against that. Like you're having to combat that now. So if this game was in Columbia, if this game was at Willie B at night, I'd probably look at this totally differently. But night game at Neyland, the dark mode jerseys, it will be, I don't want to say I'll be astonished. I won't be shocked because I don't think Tennessee is some juggernaut this year. It's not like you're playing them like last year when when they're ranked in the top 10 or what have you. But I mean, I think it would be one hell of a win if South Carolina were to beat Tennessee. It would be a hell of a win with that defense, with South Carolina somewhat being one-dimensional offensively. I mean, if they can't get the running game going, at some point Spencer Rattler is going to come back down to earth and just be human, not be bad, but be human. Like I'd love to be surprised, and I will be slightly surprised if South Carolina. I mean, I've felt this way all offseason, guys, that of all the toss-up games on South Carolina's schedule, this one to me felt the least likely like a W because of the revenge factor. And what does it really mean when toe meets leather? I don't know, but I am hoping to be pleasantly surprised because I think it is more likely South Carolina loses in a blowout than wins the football game. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. So, but to be fair, when you've got a quarterback like Spencer Rattler playing the way he is, a big-time weapon on the outside like Xavier Legette, I mean, all bets are off. All bets are off. So, Terminator 98 says, can't believe the spread is 12.5 when we only lost to Georgia in Athens by 10. Well, Terminator 98, the transitive property just doesn't apply in football. So I think what they're looking at is this. I mean, Georgia was a team that coming into that game was having some offensive struggles. They were starting slow. And when they kicked it into gear, they outscored the Gamecocks 21-0. I know the final score said that 10 points, right? I mean, give the Gamecocks credit for keeping that thing as close and competitive and jumping out ahead to the 14-3 lead and all those great things. But the transitive property just does not mean a ton. It doesn't do a whole lot for you in this ballgame. I think Vegas is looking at, again, at home, at night, in a revenge type of game, if you will. South Carolina's secondary, their defense as a whole, one of the worst in the SEC, basically the worst in the SEC in all major categories. And you can talk about schedule and the offenses played. We all get that and understand that. But the bottom line is this defense is not very good. But the defense is not very good. That's it. So South Carolina, are they going to be able to get enough stops to win? That's the question. I think offensively, the Gamecocks are going to have success. I think offensively, Spencer Rattler is just playing at too high of a level for this offensive attack to get stymied by a Tennessee defense that they've done a good job of getting after the quarterback, but they're not elite, right? They're not elite by any means. Like, Tennessee wins their football games by scoring a lot offensively. That's how they do it, right? There's a reason why since 2020, Tennessee is 0-13 when they've scored less than 30 points in an SEC game. I mean, that's crazy when you think about it. Their defense has not been very good. They score lots of points, though. So the question for me is can South Carolina stop Tennessee defensively? And I know people look at that Florida game and say, well, look what Florida did. Florida made them look foolish. Guys, Florida's defense is really, really good. Really good. Like the best in the SEC statistically right now good. Florida is, I think Florida and South Carolina defensively are just worlds apart, to be honest with you. So I hope the Gamecocks can do that, but, based off what we saw against Mississippi State, based off of what we've seen to this point in this season, I don't have a whole lot of optimism that South Carolina defensively is going to be able to slow down Tennessee all that much. It starts in the ground game. I think if they can get that going, especially Joe Milton over the top, it's going to be tough to defend. It's going to be tough to stop. So let's see. Ethan says, weird things always seem to happen when we play Tennessee, whether it's injuries, unexpected wins, or weird play calling. Anything can happen for this game, and revenge isn't the only factor. Ethan, it's not the only factor, but it's a factor. It's a factor, no doubt. Again, what does it really mean when toe meets leather? I don't know that it means a ton, Ethan. It's going to come down to execution and which team plays better and which team is able to win the line of scrimmage and which team is able to, to execute on their explosives and what have you. But it is a factor. It is a factor. And again, the game being at Neyland at night, it's a monumental task for South Carolina. It's a monumental task. So, let's see. Lynn Turner, this is Earth for Spencer Rattler. This is Spencer Rattler that everybody expected coming out of high school. Lynn, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, Spencer Rattler's not going to go 18 for 20 or 25 or 27 every game. Like, he's going to have a game where he goes 24 for 34 with 2 touchdowns and an interception. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably going to happen. I mean, I'd love to be wrong. He just plays at this all SEC, all American caliber all season long, but it's the level he's playing at's incredible. So to your point, Lynn, you get that Spencer Rattler tomorrow night and, you know, all bets are off. And I mean, there's no reason to believe you won't get that Spencer Rattler. The biggest thing will be just keeping him upright, keeping the pressure off of him, giving him time to operate in the pocket. If this Gamecocks offensive line can do that, they can win those battles in the trenches. Hey, I don't see any reason why Spencer Rattler will not torch that Tennessee secondary. Bo Daddy says, key number 1, come out swinging early. Punch him in the mother effing mouth. If not, it could get out of hand quick. Kens says, would you take undefeated at home for the rest of the year but lose all road games? I'll say this, Kens. It doesn't really matter if I would take that or not. There's a chance that happens because you think about it. You got Tennessee tomorrow. Then after this, you've got Mizzou and A&M, and that's it. Right? That's it. Tennessee, Mizzou, A&M, Georgia, and then you had the neutral site in Charlotte. So, I mean, there's my preseason predictions, I had you beating Mizzou, and that was, I guess UNC I had as a win, but that wasn't a true road game. But I had you beating Mizzou, and that was it. So, I mean, would I take it? Would I take it? Yes, because that would mean a win over Clemson. Like, that's why I would take it. Yeah, that's why I would take it. Justin Martin says, Chris, thoughts on College game day headed to Duke? I think it's cool. Notre Dame, Duke, that's a big game. It's cool that, it's neat when game day goes to places they've never been before. So obviously Durham would fall in that category of places that College game day has never attended. So, Huffer Billy Paul says, if Rattler's able to have time, Tennessee will be in trouble. Brewer Nation says this about Montario Hardesty, send his ass back to Tennessee. I hear you. Justin Martin says, prediction for South Carolina-Tennessee game. South Carolina 30, Tennessee 23. Josh says, AB has a great returning game with a lot of focus being on Xavier Legette. I hope so, Josh. He's just got to catch the football. That's it. He's got to catch the football. So, I mean, guys, I see a scenario in which the Gamecocks beat Tennessee. I do. I think it will just flat out take a bad game from Joe Milton. I think South Carolina needs to force the issue with Joe Milton. They got to slow down the running game, of course. But getting that offense off schedule, making Joe Milton make plays, right? I mean, similar to what you did against Georgia, right? Like making the quarterback make plays. I don't know if being aggressive defensively and like sending the blitz and generating pressure that way is the way to go, just because of the simple fact that, guys, you saw what happened last week. You saw what happened. When you put guys on an island, you put guys one-on-one. South Carolina paid for it dearly. I mean, they got burned. I mean, DQ Smith's not a cover guy. Nicky Manwari, he is to an extent. You don't want to be back in that position, though, where a bunch of guys are running down the field one-on-one, and Joe Milton's using that arm strength and pushing the football down the field, and not a friendly situation for South Carolina. David Barnes says, hot take, but if Juice isn't 100% after the bye week, I'd sit him into the Clemson game so he doesn't have to burn a red shirt, or so he doesn't burn a red shirt. I'd love to have him and X playing together, but not sure it is realistic. David, I would tell you this. Yeah, Shane Beamer mentioning in his call-in show last night that they're going to sit down during the bye week. They're going to sit down during the bye week and reevaluate his status and what the plan is. David, this is just me guessing and reading between the lines, but I think that's going to be a meeting about, okay, where is the foot? And realistically, like, do you want to come back and play or not? Because he's got aspirations of the NFL. He's got aspirations of playing at the next level. And I mean, if I had to put money on it right now, I think Juice Wells is done for the year. That's just my guess. When you've got a foot injury that's lingering that badly, when you've got a foot injury that's giving you that many problems, I will be surprised if Juice Wells takes another snap in the Garnet and Black this year or ever again. I don't see Juice Wells coming back. He's put together enough tape and enough of a body of work to where he's going to be a high draft pick. He's going to be a guy that scouts go after because of what he's done, the productivity, if you will, and the explosive plays and just what he's put on film. I think Juice Wells, though, I would be surprised if he took another snap this year. I really would. I'd be surprised. Arthur Bayer says, does the determining factor of a win or loss for Carolina solely depend on them playing at night at Tennessee? I have to respectfully disagree. That's not the only thing, Arthur Bayer. I look at that defense. That's the very first thing. I look at the fact that, but here's the thing, though, Arthur Bayer. Here's the thing. In a 50-50 toss-up game, yeah, playing at home at night is a big determining factor. Yeah, it is. It is. Like South Carolina, Mississippi State, if that game would have been in Starkville at night and that game was 27-27, there's no guarantee that game goes the South Carolina way. So, yes, when you got a bunch of these toss-up games, and it doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't always work out that way, to your point. But it plays a major factor. It plays a major role. Yes, because it's interesting how, you make a mistake at home. Hey, it's quiet. Your crowd's not saying a whole lot. Like, when you're on the road, that's why you see mistakes compound themselves. Because guess what? You make one mistake, the crowd's going crazy. They're in your ear. It's very easy to make another mistake and for that to get in your head. And like, you have to fight that and combat that and go against that. Like everything that was going for you last week, right? In a 7-point win against Mississippi State at home, it's now all going against you. It is now all going against you. So you have to overcome that. That's why it's so important, Arthur Bayer, to protect your home field. That's why it's so hard to win on the road in the SEC. It just is. So I'm not telling you that that's solely the reason it's going to happen. I mean, I'll give you football reasons of why Tennessee, I think, is going to get the W. I think South Carolina defensively has issues. I think Tennessee's run game is going to be a problem. I think Joe Milton and company are going to torch that South Carolina secondary a couple times over the top. I'm not saying he's great, but Josh Heupel and company will have it dialed up to take advantage of a weak Gamecocks defense. And I think it's going to be a shootout early, I think. I think Spencer Rattler plays well, but I think that Tennessee pass rush will get there often enough to force a couple of mistakes. I think some uncharacteristic mistakes from Spencer Rattler. And therefore, I see Tennessee pulling away to a 2-touchdown win. Those are your football reasons. But yeah, a large part of that does have to do with the fact that when you get that momentum on the home field at night, that Neyland Stadium crowd on top of you, I think it's going to be much tougher to come back and overcome that in this football game. I do. Yes, I do. I'm also not completely sold that South Carolina's running game is going to be there. I think there's a good chance South Carolina is one-dimensional yet again. This is a team averaging, 2.4 or 2.6 yards per carry, the worst mark in the SEC. Last week was very encouraging, but I think this Tennessee defensive front is a little bit more something than what Mississippi State put out there on the field last week. So I'd love to be wrong, obviously. I don't pick losses and hope to be right, but that's just how I see it playing out, guys. South Carolina, a monumental win last year, 63-38, will forever, it's forever enshrined, obviously, but Tennessee's going to get their revenge tomorrow night. I think Tennessee, they have not looked great this year. Tennessee has not looked great by any means. They're not the team they were last year. But if there's one game that Tennessee is going to show up and play well and put it all together, I think it's going to be this game tomorrow night at Neyland Stadium. Hope I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. Guys, we're going to jump into our first break of the day. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling here on this Friday. All that and more. You're tuned in to the Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge, where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we are back here on this Friday, our Friday Mailbag show, taking your questions, comments, calls, 843-790-3377. Guys, this day is for you all. I want to hear from you, your thoughts, your comments, your questions, your predictions, whatever it might be on this Friday. Let's get back into it. Thomas Walker says, I was talking to a player's parent And they said Wells had a screw in his foot and that something happened to that screw during the Georgia game. He continues. They also said he felt rushed to play in the UNC game and that he wasn't ready. Yeah, Thomas, that's disappointing. It really is. To know that fans and people like myself were right all along about the injury report. And, people wanted to fade my injury report, say there was no credit to it, no credence. And turns out it was Shane Beamer's injury report that had no credit or credence to it. So it's unfortunate. And it's even more unfortunate, obviously, that, Wells suffered that hit in that Georgia game and, obviously had one big play this year, one explosive play. And that's all we get to see. So Kens says, Mario Anderson, over or under 50 yards rushing? That's a great question, Kens. That's a great question. Over under 50? I will go under. I'm going under. Guys, I think South Carolina's offensive line is going to struggle. I like Big Tree Babalade a lot. I like Trovon Bow a lot. But, guys, I've told you many times before, playing and, more importantly, starting two true freshmen on the offensive line is not a recipe for great success on the road in the SEC. Big Tree Babalade and Trovon Bow have been really, really good this year. Don't get me wrong. And they're going to be fantastic players at South Carolina. But I am nervous about South Carolina's offensive front going up against what's been a really, really good Tennessee defensive front to this point, getting after the quarterback, stopping the run. The front seven has been really active. I understand what Florida did against Tennessee, but I don't think the Gamecocks' offensive line is where Florida's offensive line is. And again, when you've got two true freshmen in there, in Neyland at night, dealing with the elements and going up against that front seven, I'm less than confident that that's going to work out well for South Carolina. So we'll see. 50 over under 50. He might go. I'm going to go under though. If I have to go over under, I'm going under. I'm going under that number. Anyways, guys, 843-790-3377. Arthur Bear says, Chris, have we factored in Tennessee's opposition so far versus Carolina's opposition before this game? Arthur Bear, we have. And I know that Tennessee, we really don't know about Tennessee, right? Because they had one game against an SEC opponent, and Florida dragged them. Just dragged them, right, for whatever reason. Outside of that, they beat Virginia, who is probably the worst team in Power 5, Austin, PA, and UTSA. Without their starting quarterback. So, to your point, Arthur Bear, we don't know. To your point, Arthur Bear, we don't know. On the flip side, I'll just say this. On the flip side, South Carolina has lost to the number one team in the country by 10 points, beat a Mississippi State team that most would say is probably the 12th or 13th best team in the SEC, and lost to North Carolina in convincing fashion. So, I don't, the thing you hang your hat on at this point is the Gamecocks lost to Georgia by 10 points. So, Austin Miller says, I just don't see a team that held the number one team in the country to 24 total points loses to a team that was beaten by Florida. And again, Austin, this is when we start getting into the season. See, this is the trap right here. I think fans fall into this whole transitive property of football. Like there is no transitive property. There's no transitive property, my man. There is none. I mean, at one point, guys, Furman was up 14-7 on South Carolina. Does that really mean anything anymore? Like it just these teams change so much week to week. I hear what you're saying about the Florida game. I get it. I get it. But that game had some narrative of its own, did it not? Florida hadn't lost to Tennessee in 20 years in the swamp. Tennessee trying to get that, break that curse, break that hex, if you will. So, Thomas Walker says, can redshirting and transfer portal both exist in today's game? Thomas, great question. Great question, and I think somewhat of a great point that you make. It's a balance for sure, Thomas. I think it depends on the guy. I think it depends on the depth chart. I think it depends on, those different factors, if you will, because no longer are guys going to wait 3 or 4 years to get their opportunity. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen, right? So it's a fine line, Thomas, for sure. It is a fine line for sure, and something that you got to be really, really, really careful with, no doubt. Again, guys, the phone lines are officially open, 843-790-3377. That's 843-790-3377. Taking your questions, comments, calls. You can also text in your thoughts. You can leave us comments on the YouTube chat, what have you, and we will take those as well. Our final countdown to kick off, Gamecocks taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. Going to be a fun one tomorrow night. Chris Taylor, is Mario a senior or will he return next year? I think this is Mario Anderson's lone year in Columbia. I'm pretty sure. Caleb Thomas, we are a better team this year than last year, and Tennessee isn't as good as last year. Sounds like another Carolina win to me. Caleb Thomas fishing. Again, man, I wish the transitive property worked out the way that you're making it sound. I don't think it works out all that well. Is Caleb Thomas fishing? I'll ask you, is this team better than last year? I know that sounds crazy. That's a crazy thing to ask. Are they better? The OC is worlds better. That's for sure. I think the defense is significantly worse, though. I think the defense has taken a large step back this year. I really do. Offensively, the run game still atrocious. I mean, the biggest difference between this year and last year is Spencer Rattler. That's it. So, I mean, again, I wish. I mean, Caleb Thomas fishing. To your point, if the transitive property worked that way, then we wouldn't have to play the game tomorrow, right? There'd be no need to play the game. So, Gamecock Fanatic says, how many points do we need to have a chance to feel good about beating Tennessee? Great question. What's the magic number? I think it'll take 35 or more points to win. That sounds about right to me. I think 35 or more points. I don't see this being a 28-23 game or 31-24. Like I think it's going to be. I think you look at this game, guys, kind of like North Carolina, where like you're going to have to score to win. I mean, guys, I know many people are going to say, and you might not be wrong, right? You're not totally wrong that Will Rogers is a much better quarterback than Joe Milton, and he's much more accurate. But like Tennessee's a more talented offense than Mississippi State. They are flat out. They are. So I don't see how people think the Gamecocks defense that's been so porous this year is going to hold Tennessee's offense to like 24 or less. And Caleb Thomas fishing. Milton versus Hooker, huge difference. I totally get it. But think back to last year. The reason Carolina won that game last year, it wasn't because of defense. It was because of an offense that exploded. Okay, I see people coming in. Mario Anderson has one more year, COVID year. Okay. All right, cool. One more year. Good deal. That'll be beneficial next year. Is Mario Anderson going to be the starting running back, though? Or will somebody step up, and whether it be Dontavius Braswell or a star-studded true freshman or what have you? Let's see. Those Tennessee folks are going to need some volunteers to get those Spurs out of their rear ends on Saturday. 49-35 Gamecocks. That coming through via the text line. If I had to pick a winning score for South Carolina, I'd probably go 38-34 South Carolina. 38-34 South Carolina. Let's see, guys. 843-790-3377. We are taking your questions, your comments, your calls. Let's jump to the phone lines here.
Call from
Nick.
Nick, what's going on? You're on the air.
What's going on, Chris? How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate you asking. What's going on?
Nothing much. I was just calling in. I hear you talking, about the differences between this year's team, last year's team, Carolina, and Tennessee as well. And I just feel like with Beamer as a head coach, all these ranked opponents that we've been playing, I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 out of the last 8 games have been ranked opponents or something like that. And every single game, Carolina has either been in it, other than North Carolina, they kind of handled us pretty good as far as the facts and stuff. But just as far as a team aspect and the kids showing up to play, Beamer has got them to do it every time. No matter where we've been, who it's against, Clemson on the road, 10 points to Georgia, leading them at halftime. I think that's why I think going into Neyland, we got a really good shot, because I think it comes down to quarterbacks. And I think Spencer Rattler has shown he can hit the deep ball, he can hit the out route, he can hit the slant across the middle, and Joe Milton hasn't shown that at all. So I agree with you. I don't think defense is going to matter much, and I think it comes down to quarterbacks, and I think the best quarterback in the SEC is going to prove again why he's the number 1 quarterback in the SEC right now.
I love it, man. I love that. It's a battle of quarterbacks, indeed. If that is indeed what it's going to be, I think you got to feel good if you're on the South Carolina side with the way Spencer Rattler's playing.
Right. I do. I feel like score-wise, man, I mean, prediction-wise, I think Spencer Rattler is that much of a difference maker. I'm just going to go ahead and say I think Carolina wins somewhere 48-35, 48-31, somewhere along in there. And I think Carolina beats Florida and Tennessee. And I think Rattler's probably going to get a lot of Heisman talk after the next 3 weeks. That's just my predictions. I might be might have my garnet glasses on, but the way he's playing right now is kind of hard to bet against him.
Hey, I agree with you 100%, man. I agree with you 100%. Well, I appreciate the call, man. Hope your prediction comes true indeed. That would be one hell of a start to the season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Have a good one, buddy. Go Gamecocks.
Yeah, man. We'll talk soon. Great stuff. And I will say this, guys, to his point, because when you've got the best quarterback in the game, you feel really good about your chances. If South Carolina is able to slow down the Tennessee running game, and it's a big if, right, because it's very difficult to slow down. You look at the numbers. They're one of the best in college football. And, of course, Josh Heupel and company, they love to run the football. But if South Carolina is able to get Tennessee off schedule, and if this game truly does just come down to a battle of the quarterbacks, who's got the better quarterback and which quarterback plays at a higher level, South Carolina will win this football game. Bottom line, because Spencer Rattler is far superior to Joe Milton, and it's not even a debate. So if it does come down to that, if it's just a battle of the quarterbacks, South Carolina will get the W, because they've got the quarterback that is playing better than anybody else in the SEC right now. They have that guy. They have that guy. When you have that guy, I mean, typically, guys, that's what it comes down to, right? Home field advantage, stopping the run, and who's got the hotter quarterback? Who's got the quarterback who's playing at a higher level at that time? That's really it's turnover margin too. You want to throw that in there, but that's what it comes down to. Like, that's really, truly what it comes down to in college football these days. And so, with the way that Spencer Rattler's been playing, I mean, you got to feel good about your chances. I am struggling to see a path to where South Carolina does slow down that running game enough to put the entire ball game on Joe Milton. That's the only thing for me. It's just, I think it's much easier said than done. I think it's going to be a really, really difficult task to slow down that run game. Let's see. Jesse Jacobs, we got Jake Crain coming up today. So Jake Crain is on Fridays. Our Thursday guest is Marc Ryan. He was out yesterday with an illness, what have you. So we actually are double dipping with the guest today, Jesse. We'll get Jake on right at 1 o'clock, and then Marc Ryan on at 1:35. Michael Lynn says secondary is the story on both sides. Indeed it is. Bo Daddy, major storyline, secondary. Do you think the Vols have success downfield? They'll have far less success if they don't have the rushing attack working, because South Carolina won't be playing the run. But if they're able to get that rushing attack going, work off play action, Bo Daddy, I think they will have a lot of success for sure. And I think they're going to push the football downfield. I mean, how could you not? How could you not? You'd be a fool not to attack South Carolina down the field this weekend. Guys, we're going to jump into another break. On the other side, we'll keep the conversation rolling, taking your questions, comments, calls, and at 1 o'clock, we'll get into our conversation with our good friend Jake Crain of Crain & Company. All that and more on the other side. You're tuned in to The Daily Crow. The Daily Crow is brought to you by our friends at Carolina Cigars. Carolina Cigars has been in operation since 2008, recently taken over by the Peterson family in 2020. Whether you're new to the cigar scene or whether you've been enjoying cigars your entire life, Carolina Cigars has the expertise and knowledge to make your visit to their shop enjoyable. Stop by for a fine cigar and experience their classic cigar lounge where people come together, share conversations, and become friends. So if you're into cigars and you're on Hilton Head Island, you really do need to go by and see them. They offer same-day shipping nationwide, free delivery island-wide for weddings and all special occasions. They're also proud to offer premium cigars at 9 outside humidor locations around Hilton Head Island, and they have special events throughout the year as well. They want to talk to you. They want to engage. They want to share with you their cigar selection they're very proud of and their beautiful cigar lounge. When you're in the Low Country, there's only one place for cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, and there's only one place I get my cigars. That's Carolina Cigars, Hilton Head Island's premier cigar merchant. Come and share your passion. It's all here at Carolina Cigars. Give them a follow on Instagram at Carolina_cigars, or give them a call today at 843-681-8600. That's 843-681-8600. Smoke them if you got them, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya. The Daily Crow is also brought to you by our friends over at A1 Air Quality Consultants. Headaches, coughing, running nose while in the office or just in your home, call A1 Air Quality Consultants to have your air checked today. From Columbia to Asheville, Anderson to Charlotte, they are your breath of fresh air for all of your air quality needs. Be sure to give them a call or shoot them a text today at 864-619-2092. That's 864-619-2092. You can also contact them via email at a1airqualityconsultants@gmail.com. Be sure to check them out. We thank A1 Air Quality Consultants for their love and support of the Spurs Up Show, and tell them that Chris from the Spurs Up Show sent ya.
Muscle Dougie, ho.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, we're back here on this Friday, September the 29th, 2023. 10 more minutes of your questions, comments, calls. Then, guys, we are double dipping in our second hour with our special guests. At 1 o'clock, we have my good friend Jake Crain of Crain and Company. At 1:35, Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. He will join us. That being said, guys, let's get back to the phone lines here.
Call from
Day.
BDD, what's up, man? You're on the air.
Well, man. It's that time of the year, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. BDD, how are you?
Oh, man, just eating some beef jerky, and I thought I'd give you some call real quick, man. Talk about the game.
How you feeling about it? You confident?
Man, I'm more confident than I am on a speed run of Crash Bandicoot, man. I'm doing good. Man, let me tell you. Are you ready to see Joe Exotic over the top to Flying Squirrel White? Because it's going to be happening, man. Joe's about to line him up at night.
All night, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And then don't forget about them 3 running backs we got, man.
Yeah.
I can't Tweedledee and Tweedledee. I can't remember their names, but they're real good. So I think the Vols gonna give it to you, man. I ain't a betting man, but if I was, I'd put my money on the Vols.
I'm not surprised to hear that, BDD. I'm not surprised. You are a Tennessee man, in fact.
Yeah, man. I'm just seeing, like, in my head, I just see, like 500 yards, and that's not an exaggeration after seeing what them little junior Bulldogs did to you last week. But I'm saying like 500 yards passing for Joe Exotic, about 75 yards rushing for him. If his knee don't give out like Pinocchio, if he's all right, and can make smart running decisions. But yeah, man, I'm seeing a score like 41-14, but that's like 4 field goals and a safety for you boys. That's what I'm thinking.
4 field goals and a safety. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Jesus.
41-14, Old Smoky.
41-14, Smoky. Well, BDD, I can't say that I hope you're right, my friend. I can't say that I hope you're right, but
man, I know we're still friends and all. Yeah, I know where your heart lies and all that stuff. So it's all good and all good fun. But all right, man, I just want to call in and let you know, 41-14, Old Smoky.
41-14. BDD's locked in. BDD's locked in.
BDD will always be the best caller on TDC. Good old BDD. BDD from East Tennessee. All right, Chris, have a good weekend, buddy, and I'll holler at you maybe after the call-in show if I can get in tomorrow night. My man, I might holler at you. All right, man. BDD out.
BDD out. Love it. What a way to go into the weekend. My goodness. What a way to go into the weekend. Let's see. Arthur Bear says 36-31 Gamecocks. 36-31 Gamecocks. Michael Lynn says, welcome to Paul Feinbaum territory. Indeed. Paul Feinbaum territory. You are right, my friend. You are right. CCM says, East Tennessee folks are just a different breed.
Call
Speak
from
of the devil.
Rebecca.
Rebecca, what's going on? How are you? You're on the air.
I'm all right. I was wanting to give my little speech. I about forgot about it because I didn't know how long you was going to do the call in.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let me see. I'm pulled over at the Waffle House, so I'm outside so I can talk.
Okay.
Okay, listen. All right, listen up, Tennessee Volunteer fans. I got something to say to y'all. We whooped your ass last year. We're going to whoop your ass again. So, y'all can kiss my ass. You can kiss my ass till I be buried in the ground, for all I care. And let's just put it this way. I don't give two fucks about Tennessee Vols. Don't give two damns about y'all. Because y'all have been assholes toward me since the beginning of me living in Tennessee. So, let's just put it this way. Tennessee Vols can kiss my ass.
Short, sweet, and to the point, Rebecca. I love it. Tennessee Vols can kiss your ass, our ass, everybody's ass. To hell with them.
Everybody's ass.
To hell with them.
The hell with them. They can go to hell for all I care. So, that's how I feel about Tennessee Vols, and go Gamecocks. Let's win this game. I've already went and saw my great aunt and my great uncle at the grave, so hopefully somehow, some way we can win this. Because I've done everything I could think of.
That means there's no more left to do, Rebecca. No more left to do.
Ball's in their hand now.
Indeed. Rebecca, well said. I appreciate the call.
Right.
I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow night. Hope to hear from you in the post-game call-in show.
Oh, yeah, you will hear from me. I'll be at the motel watching the game when I get out of Dollywood. So, and anyway, go Gamecocks. Let's beat Tennessee. Whoop their ass, y'all. We need to whoop their ass.
Indeed. Rebecca, always great to hear from you. Thank you so much for calling in.
All right. Bye.
We'll talk soon. Great stuff from Rebecca, guys. That's a great place to put a pin in it. We've got Jake Crain upcoming in the next minute or two. Man, the Friday mailbag did not disappoint this week. BDD, Rebecca, I mean, everybody else that called in, what a time. How about this, guys, coming from our friend Barrett Salee of CBS Sports. He gives his picks for the weekend. South Carolina at Tennessee, he has this to say. South Carolina is way below Tennessee in my power rankings, which suggests that Tennessee will get the win here. Wrong. Styles make fights, and Rattler will turn this one into a shootout. Who do you trust more, Rattler or Milton? The answer is pretty obvious. Milton will make a couple of late mistakes through the air. The Gamecocks will not only cover, but win this one outright. So Barrett Salee taking South Carolina to beat Tennessee straight up in Neyland. And I don't know what would be more entertaining to watch, the celebration from Gamecock Nation or those wearing orange and white crumbling, because they've got it in their minds like this is the revenge game. This is the dark mode unis. This is, all the chips are in on this game. I don't even know what the backlash or reaction or the type of coping that would take place if Tennessee does not get the job done. Either way, guys, again, like I mentioned, we got a really big day today when it comes to guests. He joins us every single Friday, and we appreciate him being gracious with his time. Does a fantastic job over at Crain and Company every single day. You can check them out. Our good friend Jake Crain of Crain and Company joins the show. Jake, what's going on, my man? Great to have you on once again. How are you?
Oh, dude, it's always great to come on. I'm fantastic, man. Had some good games last night. Dude, I had Jacksonville State -6. Oh my God, what a sweat! I don't know if y'all stayed up and watched that game, but it was nuts. It was a crazy cover at the end. But no, excited for this weekend, man. Really ready to get it going.
I did not see that one. What happened in that game, Jake? I heard
Dude.
it was a nutso ending, but I did not see
Well, I mean, Sam Houston State hadn't had a rush over 10 yards the whole season. Not like the past couple games, the whole season. They put a new guy in at quarterback, Smothers, who's actually from the state of Alabama, transferred from West Virginia back to Jacksonville State. And Sam Houston was leading the whole game. It was 21-7. Got to the second half. Jacksonville State brought it to 21-14 going into the fourth quarter. They ended up scoring, Jacksonville State did, to make it 21-20, missed the extra point. Sam Houston drives it all the way down the field, scores a touchdown with 1:11 to go, kicked the extra point. So Sam Houston State's up 28-20. And they got a really good defense. Sam Houston State really does have a good defense. Jacksonville State, man, 8 plays, 80 yards, touchdown, get the 2-point conversion. Remember, I had a -6. All right, I left this bet for dead a while ago, especially when it got to 21-7. Force overtime. They give up a kick return to the 50. So there's a Hail Mary at the end. They don't get it. You go into overtime. Jacksonville State wins the toss or loses the toss. Thank God. Gets the ball first, scores on the second play, holds them, wins by 7. Just that means something bad's happening. That means something bad's happening from a betting standpoint this weekend. Like some bad's going. I'm already preparing myself for it.
Oh my goodness. A Crain, or maybe something really good's happening. Maybe look at the bright side. I don't know. But yeah, to your point.
No, I know how this goes. Those two twins they've got attached to each other underneath that casino in Las Vegas. They're going to get me this weekend. I can feel it.
Jake, let's look back on the week that was really, really quickly, and then we'll talk about this weekend's games. Week 4, starting with South Carolina. A big home win, game you had to have. Will Rogers goes off for 487 passing yards, and despite that, Spencer Rattler stays hot, and the Gamecocks get a much-needed W. What were your thoughts on South Carolina's win, them notching their first conference win of the season?
Well, it's big. Anytime you can win a conference game, let alone early to get yourself some momentum, go ahead and get you started out right. I thought it said a lot about South Carolina, the way that the DNA that Shane Beamer has put in this program. And I'm sure we're going to get to Spencer Rattler. I let off the show with it Thursday. Something that we've been saying since the offseason, since it started to come on here. Every time Mississippi State would get close, South Carolina would make a play. And that shows you, in my opinion, and having been in it, that there's a lot of belief in this team, but they handle adversity really well. I think that's one of the biggest compliments that I can give Shane Beamer and what he's built at South Carolina. I don't know if there's a team out there that handles adversity better than South Carolina. Going back to the end of last year, with the injuries they've dealt with, what they lost in the portal, every time you leave South Carolina for dead, like first half against Georgia, right? And they end up losing that game. I know there's no moral victories. I know the standard's high there in Columbia. But every time you leave them for dead, they crawl their ass out the ditch and stand up and start running. And not that they were left for dead against Mississippi State, but there were times when the momentum flipped. And like we said previewing the game, Mississippi State was embarrassed the week before. As men, they were physically dominated. They were embarrassed. And Zach Arnett just took over that program. There's a lot of pressure on him. So you knew they were going to come in and fight, but South Carolina would deliver a blow, take the blow, deliver the blow. So I think it just shows you kind of the intestinal fortitude of this team and this program, which down the road, once he gets the line of scrimmage developed, you're going to really, really see that come to fruition in some big games.
Jake, you mentioned you talked a lot about Spencer Rattler this week. I know specifically on your show. Just give the folks who may have missed that some insight. I know, again, I watched the entire video. Obviously, you talking about, his importance to South Carolina, where he stands amongst other players in college football. But for those who may have missed it, just give the folks an idea of what the subject matter was specifically about the Gamecocks quarterback.
Well, like I said, we opened up with it. We led with it. It's Spencer Rattler's not going to win the Heisman, right? South Carolina's not going to win the national championship. It's going to be tough to win the East. Who the hell knows this year in the SEC? But I don't know, and I don't think there is a more important player to his team's success than Spencer Rattler to South Carolina. And we know he's always had the talent, but look at what he's had to deal with. You've got a deficient offensive line. I think we can all recognize that. You don't run the ball well at all. Juice Wells is hurt. You got injuries left and right. You had Marshawn Lloyd leave. You had Jaheim Bell leave, who was the ultimate security blanket. Yeah, you got Trey Knox, but Jaheim Bell's a hell of a player. We can all agree on that. He doesn't have the greatest pass protection, but he doesn't make excuses. Or when something bad happens earlier in his career, he would fold. He makes plays, not excuses now. And the maturity jump that Spencer Rattler has made. That's why this whole offseason, when people are talking about, oh, Spencer Rattler, I wasn't worried about Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler is the last thing I was worried about when it comes to South Carolina. But now when I watch him lead, when it's not going good, he's over there on the sidelines getting guys going. He's over there teaching. He's leading. It's not, oh, it's going good, so I'm going to be a good leader. And, oh, it's going bad, so it's everybody else's fault. And it's a pity party for me. And, oh, poor Spencer Rattler. I am so impressed with the maturity jump and the leadership jump from Spencer Rattler and what he means to this team. And it's not just the picking guys up on the sideline. It's hanging in there and taking a hit. He knows they're deficient on the offensive line, but he still hangs in. He knows he's going to make some money in the NFL. He don't want to get hurt and cost himself, but he hangs in there and takes the hits. He'll put his head down when he has to. He'll shake off a tackle and extend the play. I've got so much respect for Spencer Rattler, not just as a player, but as a man. Because you take Spencer Rattler off of South Carolina, they're done. No chance. No shot in hell to do anything. You got the 121st ranked defense in the country in team defense. Spencer's out here keeping them in it every game, not making excuses, not pitching fits. He's pitching damn good games from the pocket, right? And leadership is not just carrying the team, but it's how you carry yourself. And I think that speaks a lot, once again, to Shane Beamer and that culture that he's developed at South Carolina. And I know South Carolina fans may get impatient sometime. You'll say, oh, Jake, you predicted him to go 5-7, this, that, and the other. It's coming. I'm telling you right now. And the unfortunate part is the timeline doesn't match up where Spencer Rattler gets to be there when that offensive line gets developed and that run game's cooking. Because he would rip guys apart. And I can't wait to watch this guy in the league. He's made himself a lot of money, but you would never know it.
Jake, it's like we said all offseason, man, this team will go as far as 7 takes them. I'm not sure I even knew, though, how true that statement would be as we enter week 5
Him and
of
Drake
the college
May,
football season.
Most important players of their team, without a doubt.
Yeah. Jake, let's move to what happened in College Station. Auburn struggling on the offensive side. That's putting it lightly. What do you see from Auburn in that game? Obviously, it was a huge bounce-back win for Texas A&M after that Miami game a couple of weeks prior. And, the defense specifically bouncing back. They, unfortunately, though, lose Connor Wegman. Max Johnson will now take over going into the Arkansas game. But you're an Auburn man by trades. I mean, what do you see at the quarterback position? Is it one of those things where this thing isn't really going to click until Hugh Freeze gets that guy, or is there a guy on this roster that you think can take this team forward?
Well, it's just like we've been talking about, and Auburn fans freaked out, just like every SEC fan base freaks out. You want to win every game, and I get it. But this is going to take time. But here's where I was surprised. Peyton Thorne coming over from Michigan State, he played 3 years in the Big Ten. He has experience. He's a coach's son. Does he have the best arm in the country? No, not even close. Is he the most athletic guy running in the country? No, not even close. But I can't believe the biggest detriment to him right now is his toughness. Look, it's one thing if guys are just flooding in there and you're getting hit literally when you catch the snap and you're trying to make moves and get out of the pocket. This man would literally just fall down. He was terrified. And look, we're all a fan of somebody. I'm an Auburn fan, but if I want to make people happy, I'd sell brownies and cupcakes for a living. That's not what I do. And watching him fold like that and duck the smoke, right? Because half a quarterback's job, I just talked about Spencer Rattler, is sitting in there and delivering the pill when the pressure's coming. It's not always going to be perfect. And there's times where you're going to get sacked. But watching him get pressure from depth and not even be able to get into his second read or throw the check down into that pressure with all the experience you have. And I'm sure Peyton Thorne's a great guy. I'm sure he's a guy that treats people nice and goes to class. Well, guess what? I don't need a nice guy out there. I don't need an Eagle Scout out there. I need somebody that's going to go out there and be a tough ass. I need somebody that's going to hang in there and make the play when you're supposed to. When those offensive linemen are having to headbutt 300-pounders the whole time, the running backs are averaging 8 yards a pop in the first half, and you're out there folding. I lost a lot of respect for Peyton Thorne. I'm going to be honest with you. And at the end of the day, I think they're going to trot him out there against Georgia, and you're going to find out, was this a one-time thing? Was it, hey, I'm in the SEC, I'm uncomfortable, whatever. And And if not, you're going to have to throw Robbie Ashford in there. But I didn't think it would be the toughness factor that we'd be sitting on here debating with Peyton Thorne. Hey, you made some bad throws, left some up, left some low, made a couple bad reads. Maybe you weren't able to run and get that first down because you don't run 4-4, but not toughness, not hanging in the pocket.
Jake, last thing, and then we'll get into week 5. Alabama gets the win over – hold on, give me 1 second. We just had the call-in show. We got the call-in line freaking out.
That's all right. I'll take this time to tell Ken's. I predicted South Carolina to go 5-7 last year, and they pulled 2 out of their ass against Clemson and Tennessee. So don't act like you're some Nostradamus, and I'll be back, buddy. What did you predict them to go? Undefeated? That's probably right. Ken's.
Indeed. Ken's,
I'm a Barbie guy
out
myself.
here throwing shade. Dude, we don't even
I'll be back.
I was going to say,
I'll be back.
Yeah. Side note, I actually saw the Barbie movie, believe it or not. And
Did
what
you?
a roller coaster.
Oh, God.
That was.
There's no
way
I could watch it.
I went with the missus. I did not go alone, so don't get any crazy ideas that I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here like reeling in depression for some reason from college football season. And I needed to pick me up. So don't it's not exactly it. I'm not there yet. Alabama, 2-touchdown win over Ole Miss, Jake. Ole Miss was the sexy upset pick, I feel like, obviously last week. To go in there, win straight up, which it was a great opportunity for Lane Kiffin and company, but Bama with the big bounce back game. What did you see from the Crimson Tide that you like so much? It was a comedy of errors in that first half. Pull away late. I think we all agree Jalen Milroe is the guy for that football team. And then Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, just another missed opportunity in a big game. What'd you see overall that happened in Tuscaloosa?
Why I was shocked by the game plan that Ole Miss brought in there. That there's a common misconception that like Lane Kiffin and Lincoln Riley and Josh Heupel and Jeff Levy and these guys want to go throw the ball 70 times a game. No, they're a run-to-pass offense. I mean, when Lane's really cooking, a lot of it is off play action. A lot of it is taking your shots when you need to take your shots and setting safeties up. And Quinshon Judkins apparently was healthy, but they never really tried to get the run game going. It was all intermediate passes. And if you actually look at the numbers and you watch what Alabama does with that Rip Liz match coverage, yeah, Ken, if you predicted 7-5, I got some beachfront property in Kansas I can sell you, lying ass. But when I looked at the game plan, they didn't go to Quinshon a lot. They didn't run Jackson a lot. They did when they got in the red zone. I mean, they beat Alabama in 2-man one time because Alabama didn't stunt the front, which is absolutely nuts. That was just a miscommunication. But they never really took their shots down the field, and then they never really played with tempo. Like, you got to do something, man. So even when they were down by a lot, they never hurried up. There was no sense of urgency there. And I thought the game plan was just bad. Now, when you look at Alabama, I thought the defense played better. They tackled well in space. But they got played to their strength. They should have played that way. Alabama tried to hand it to them in the first half. I mean, you look at Jalen Milroe, for some reason, they still do not want to tailor that offense around what Jalen Milroe does best. I just don't understand it. And this week against Mississippi State, since it's on the road, watch what's going to happen. They're taking Jalen Milroe on the road for the first time, and they're going to probably protect him. Probably not going to see a lot of 3-step and 5-step. Probably going to see more quarterback design runs, Alabama getting in heavier personnel, moving them around, zone read, RPOs, and they'll score 45 points because they won't put him in a bad situation because they're trying to protect him. And in reality, them trying to protect Jalen Milroe is actually playing to his strength. So if Alabama, not against Ole Miss, not against Mississippi State, you play LSU and some of these other teams you're going to have to beat down the road, and you keep Jalen Milroe in this 3-step and 5-step. I mean, they ran smash at a 3-by-1 to the field in the red zone. And the corner was just sitting there sinking. It's one of the first reads you learn as a quarterback, whether it's 2-man smash, hitch by 1, corner by 2, or 3-by-1 smash, where you get the hitch by 1, 2 runs whatever, and 3 runs a corner, because you can do multiple things with number 2. That corner sinks, you throw it in front of him. That's the main read. He still makes his mind up where he's going to throw the ball out of drop back passes before the ball's even snapped. That's like stepping in the batter's box and saying, I don't care where this pitch is thrown, I am going to swing at it. You may luck up and connect on a couple and catch somebody slipping, but most of the time, buddy, it is disaster. He did it against Texas. He did it against Ole Miss. Obviously, didn't play against South Florida. So I think there's still a lot of questions with Bama.
Jake, let's move into week 5. Gamecocks and Vols under the lights at Neyland. And let me ask you this about this game. We've heard the revenge factor, the rematch, if you will, all off season long. Do you feel like, number one, do you really believe in the whole revenge factor thing? Do you think that's something in this football game that helps Tennessee and they're going to come out fired up and inspired? Or does it put more pressure on them to where if things don't go well early, the Vols may crack due to not living up to, because I mean, Tennessee fans want to win this game by 50, right? They don't just want to win.
Mm-hmm.
They want blood. So like the whole revenge factor thing, do you think that helps or could it maybe even hurt Tennessee in this game?
Well, look, I think there's a common misconception with stuff like this and bulletin board material. Like once the game starts, nobody in between plays is looking at each other like, hey man, you remember that time they heard Hendon Hooker play really good on this next play? Now, bulletin board material helps with preparation. Football is a game of preparation. We always use joke around. It's a game of foreplay, right? How do you warm up and get ready? It narrows your focus in practice because once the ball snapped, you're out there playing. Like it doesn't work like that. So it probably helped with prep this week, but the pressure's already on Tennessee to win this game. Like there's no more at it. They're expected to win this. They're expected to do big things this year. Right? It's the new Tennessee. The old Tennessee's dead. Laughing stock, LOL, whatever. This is the new Tennessee with Joe Milton, right? The Avenger that everybody was just freaking out about because he hit a golf cart from 80 yards at Manning Passing Academy. Like it helps with prep, but the pressure's already on Tennessee. So I don't buy into it during the game. I think it helps prepare the guys to play. Keeps them more focused during practice, during walkthroughs, during meetings, during things like that, that when you get into the game, in a game that you play like you prepare, it's not like me going to the driving range and hitting really good on the driving range and then absolutely playing terrible. Like football is you play how you prepare. So I do think it helps in that aspect, but as well as I do, Chris, the pressure's already on them. They're at home. All the expected to have a chance to win the East, and you already lost one to Florida. You're already behind the 8-ball conference-wise. So, yeah, it helps in some ways. I love foreplay too, Jacob. It's great.
Jake,
some people said I'm the best at it. Just rumors, not myself, but
per sources, Jake.
Per sources.
That being said, Jake, how do you see it shaking out? I mean, South Carolina obviously coming off a big win they had to have against Mississippi State. Tennessee is a team that I feel like, you look at the numbers and we still don't really know what they are. I mean, the one game we've seen them play against SEC competition was the Florida game, and Florida sort of had their way with Tennessee. Outside of that, it's been Virginia, Austin Peay, and UTSA, right? But the Gamecocks having to go in that venue at night, it might be the most electric atmosphere of the weekend. What are your thoughts? How does it shake out? Does Tennessee get their revenge in that game?
Well, look, I think the number's really high. At plus 12.5. I think that's a really high number in this game. There's a couple things that I'm looking at. I'm not worried about how Spencer Rattler's going to play. I'll say it again, like I say every Friday when I come in here. Spencer's going to play fine. He's going to have to do a lot by himself. But the way that Florida beat Tennessee was they ran it right at him. Like they dominated Tennessee's front seven in the run game. They got north and south, got downhill, and it opened it up for Graham Mertz. South Carolina's got to find a way to run the ball because here's the problem. You showed against Georgia, like we talked about on this show, I wonder if they're listening, that they supplemented the lack of a run game with that quick passing game, right? That perimeter passing game, the intermediate pass game to stay on schedule to get in 2nd and 6. Can that South Carolina front be able to push that Tennessee front seven defense around enough to just be able to run it well enough to have some balance on offense? Because if they do that, South Carolina can keep this game pretty close, I think. Because if there's any balance with Spencer Rattler, Leggette's a beast. Trey Knox is a beast. That's no secret. Tennessee's going to try and stop them. But Tennessee's going to try and make South Carolina one-dimensional like they've been all year. And if they are one-dimensional, it's going to be tough for South Carolina to score enough. But the biggest matchup in this game, Joe Milton's got a hurt knee right now. Got pulled out of the UTSA game. And in that style of offense, it is an RPO offense. It is a 3-man surface method. It is a 3-headed hydra. Right? You can hand the ball off to the back. The quarterback can keep it. Our quarterback can keep it and spit it outside or whatever route combination or whatever they have sitting out in the pass game off the RPO. If you cut one of the heads off that Hydra, it's going to hurt Tennessee. The line of scrimmage is always the most important, and we know that. I question South Carolina's ability to stop the run, and I question South Carolina's ability to run it on offense. That's what's going to determine this game. But assuming South Carolina is going to get blown out in a game that a lot of people don't think they have a chance to win, is playing right into Shane Beamer's hands. I think this is a one-score game late. I think there is going to be a special teams play on either side this week that is going to be huge. Is this a week we see, Shane Beamer and that special teams really go off and help them and keep them in a game? I do think Tennessee wins, but I think it's by a score or less. I think Spencer's going to find a way to put points on the board, but it's the run game on both sides for South Carolina. Can you run it well enough, and can you stop? Because if you think about it, if Joe Milton can't run effectively and you can stop the back from running, now you've cut two heads off that Hydra. Now it's a one-dimensional offense versus a one-dimensional offense. And I trust Spencer Rattler a whole hell of a lot more than I trust Joe Milton. So that's the path to victory, I think, for South Carolina. I think it's a one-score game. I think it's tight. I give Tennessee that a little bit of that edge because you're up 7 when you get off the bus at home.
Jake, I think well said, my friend. I love what you said, too, about Shane Beamer, and it seems like whenever you've got him and his team figured out, that's when they, for some reason, play the very best. Doing that,
He's
I agree
Houdini,
with you.
man. He's the guy that you bury 6 feet under and pour concrete out, and you handcuff him, and then you leave for 30 minutes, and then you come back, and, he's drinking a soda, sitting down like this, meditating.
On the road, that'll be the challenge. On the road, I agree. I felt like I was making not too much of it, but that to me, Jake, I feel like in these 50-50 SEC games, which this is how I would view this game, a toss-up game, that night game atmosphere at home. I mean, let me ask you this. Am I overselling it? Because I feel like it makes all the difference in the world. I feel like
listen, I've coached there. And even when it was against us, when I was in South Alabama, it was so loud the ground shakes. Where people get confused, I think, too, sometimes, it's a road game. The guys are going to be nervous. Most guys like playing on the road more. I would rather you boo. I get more fun out of people talking trash to me in this business than I do people being like, Jake, yeah, man, yeah, you're right. It's just I like playing on the road more. Where it hurts is communication. You can't communicate. And just like in marriage and just like in life in general, it's all about communication. And when you can't communicate, it makes it harder to operate. That's where it hurts you, not you guys suck. I love people telling me I suck. I love it because that's why when I beat you, it's going to make it that much sweeter for me. It's just that's how most guys, believe it or not, operate.
Jake, let's go to the Plains. Does Auburn have any chance of pulling the upset against Georgia? Weird things happen at Jordan Hare. You said it yourself.
I know, but important.
Weird spread in that.
Yeah,
game.
Here's why. I think I know why.
Spread.
Though. I think I know why. Yes, there's always a chance, right? There's always a chance. I've seen such crazy upsets. There's always a chance, especially in the SEC at Jordan Hare on the Indian Burial Ground, whatever. I think that spreads that way for a couple reasons. One, Carson Beck's first game on the road. They didn't really take the training wheels off of him until the second half of that South Carolina game. Go back and look at the play calling. So you're taking him on the road. You have better personnel than this team in a tough environment. You're probably going to do what? You're probably going to protect him a little bit. You're probably going to be pretty vanilla. You're probably not going to want to put him in situations where he has to think a ton or he has to make a humongous play all the time to be able to extend drives. So I think that's going to keep the scoring down a little bit. And Auburn's defense is the strength of their team. I think they've proven that to this point. The second thing is I feel like Auburn's going to try and limit possessions for Georgia. Auburn's run game, Georgia's weakness right now on defense, and I use the word weakness very lightly, is against the run. That's the only move Auburn's got right now. They're Jonah Hill on the dance floor in Superbad doing the dice move. That's all they got. That's it. So I think Auburn's going to try and limit possessions. And with this new clock rule, both teams are going to want to run the ball, play action. That's what they're going to want to do. So I think you're going to see it be a lower scoring game. I love the under in this game. I think that's why you're not seeing a 17.5. I think that's why you're not seeing a 19.5. So I don't think Auburn can score enough points outside of Georgia just melting down. Like if Carson just pulls a Drew Barrymore from 51st Dates and just, dodges a cow on the way to the facility and hits a tree and just forgets. It's going to be really tough for Auburn. I don't see, I give him a 10% chance.
Jake, I was going to say, though, to the point that you made before, like, how long can Georgia keep the training wheels on Carson Beck and get away with it? Like, at some point, do you not have to let the guy go out there and just – I mean, granted, the stats are really good. I actually heard something the other day that, we've all got questions about Georgia's offense, and Carson Beck is literally on pace right now, if he kept this up, to set the single-season passing yards record at Georgia. So they're letting him pitch it around a little bit, but in a game like – there's got to come a game at some point, right, where it's a game like this. They've just got to let Carson Beck, let him go and see what happens. They can't protect him forever.
Yeah, well, a lot of the throws have been intermediate and short. I mean, they're not, really throwing the ball down the field a lot because they're not having to. I mean, they have Brock Bowers as leading in targets, and you would assume that. But it's about play calls and pressure situations. It's not that they're not calling different plays. It's not like they're running the same play over and over again. It's how comfortable are we on 1st and 10 to let Carson throw this thing around a lot? Are we afraid we're going to be locked in 2nd and 10 the whole game? Are we afraid they're going to mix the coverage that he doesn't like? Hey, it's 3rd and 3. Do we feel comfortable enough to let Carson go up there and change the play? It's a lot of it is it's not the play calls when you're moving the ball and you're on schedule and all that stuff. The whole menu's open. It's the play calls in the pressure situations. And let's be honest, Georgia hasn't had a lot of pressure situations. I would say the second half of South Carolina was the biggest pressure situation they had. And what did they start doing on 1st down? Spitting the ball out to the perimeter, pitching backwards a little bit. It's the methodology when the pressure goes up, not necessarily, hey, are we going to let him throw it? Hell, I go out there and throw the bubble screen on 2nd 6 and be fine. But when you're down 14-3 and it's 1st and 10 to start the half and you start out with a throw, that's when you start taking the training wheels off. And like we used to say, sometimes you got to let Jesus take the wheel.
Jake, I'm so excited for this Saturday because obviously, on a weekly basis, a lot of us, including myself, do SEC power rankings, and we're trying to determine, okay, this is the 5th best team, this is the 7th best, this is the 10th best, 11th best. Well, the bottom line is we don't know, but we're going to start to learn that this weekend in games like Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, LSU, right? We're really going to start to learn, like, okay, where are these teams in regards to the SEC pecking order of those games I just mentioned against Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, A&M, Ole Miss, LSU. Which of those strike your interest the most, and what are you most excited to see? And again, a weekend where it feels like the contenders will start to separate themselves from the pretenders, if you will.
Look, I know a lot of people are down on Arkansas. I think they got a good shot against A&M. A&M's very fortunate to have Max Johnson.
I picked them to win straight up, so I hope you're right.
We have our game day show that's dropping tonight with Andy Staples coming out. I may have done the same. Let's just put it that way. LSU Ole Miss is obviously fascinating because Ole Miss loses this one, you're probably out. You're probably out. So Lane has to have it. Offensively, I want to see how Ole Miss attacks it. I love watching LSU on offense. Jaden Daniels, man. I mean, mix him with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, the backs that they have with Logan Diggs. I like what LSU's cooking on offense. Defensively in the secondary, though, they got communication problems. I mean, speaking about communicate to operate, I mean, hell, simplify it. I know you've had to simplify it. Stop. Why do y'all do so damn much in the back end of LSU? It's like it's Mississippi State when Mike Leach was there. Would y'all get out of man? Good God. Like, somebody help somebody. But I tell you what, Kentucky, Florida may end up being the best game of the weekend. And if you've got a little, you got some pizza money that you want to throw on like a big odds game or something like that, the odds of Kentucky and Florida to go into overtime is plus 1,200. I don't think you'd be crazy to sprinkle a little bit of sneak in your parents' room, right? Lift up that mattress where mom keeps that $40. All right. And you put it on Kentucky and Florida to go overtime. Interesting stat here. Kentucky, believe it or not, is number 1 in the country, number 1 or number 2 in the country in explosive plays. Doesn't mean they're a great offense. All right. And I know a lot of people, they're like, wow, what? Number 1 or number 2 in the country in explosive plays. Florida is near the bottom defensively in explosive plays given up. So that's an interesting stat. You've got strength versus weakness there. But Devin Leary, you talk about panicking. He'll go with Jody Foster in the panic room really quick when you bring pressure. So that's what I'm really interested to look at and watch. I think that game's pretty tight. I actually think it's going to go to overtime. I do like Kentucky in that game, though.
Jake, are we not talking about Missouri enough? Sitting there undefeated right now, a top 25 win. They got a sneaky game at Vandy. Vandy's not very good. Vandy, like everybody who had over 3.5 on the ticket, I feel bad for you. But anyways, that's the definition of a trap game with LSU next weekend. But when it comes to Mizzou, like, are we not giving them enough credit to this point?
Yeah, well, the good thing about this trap game is right when you're walking into the trap, there's a big billboard that says, "Hey, there's a trap here." Like, but don't worry about it because Vandy sucks. Vanderbilt's bad football team. Missouri hasn't won enough to be able to like look ahead to people. I don't think that they're conditioned to do that yet. Right? They're going to hear the hype, but I don't think they're conditioned to do that yet. Where you've won enough over time where you're like, yeah, it's Vanderbilt. Like, all right, let's just go out here and just throw peanut butter and jelly at them. No, I don't think we're talking about Missouri enough, but guess what? That's exactly how Drink wants it. Oh, yeah, because you don't have to build up the chip on the shoulder, right? Like, hey, they're not even talking about us. I mean, they're talking about Florida and Kentucky. Like, we're over here undefeated in the East, talking about Florida and Kentucky. Nobody respects us. Luther, they said you're slow. Mevis, they said you're fat. Like, it just, at the end of the day, man, he doesn't want them to be talked about. But believe me, when they beat Vanderbilt and they're undefeated, and I think when LSU beats Ole Miss, they're going to be getting talked about in that matchup. I can promise you.
Jake, games you're most looking forward to outside of SEC play? Obviously, tonight we've got Oregon State, Utah. We've got Notre Dame, Duke tomorrow night. Dion and Colorado will look to bounce back. They take on Southern Cal. Game you're most excited about, and then, of course, I know you got a laundry list of gambling picks you want to tell us, my friend. So if you want to dive into that and give the people some free money.
Akron, Buffalo. I can't wait for that one. No, obviously, Notre Dame, Duke.
Clemson, Syracuse, a sneaky game too, man. Does the downfall continue? Yeah,
it is. It's kind of in that dream crusher spot for Clemson. I'm looking forward to that one. Outside of the conference, you look at, and I think Oklahoma's going to kill Iowa State. Oregon State, Utah tonight. Kyle Whittingham's like the Riddler when it comes to injuries. I'm not going to sit here and try and guess if Cam Rising's playing or not. That line keeps going up. So I'm assuming that he's not playing. USC and Colorado. I think USC is a lot better matchup for Colorado than Oregon is. Even though I think USC may score 75 points. How does Colorado bounce back after that loss? I'm interested to see that. Looking in the Big 12, Baylor going to UCF, I think is interesting. That's kind of a weird matchup, even though Baylor starting to be some questions about Dave Aranda when everybody wanted to anoint him a couple years ago. Michigan, Nebraska, let's see just how quick the game can end. Like, that's going to be the fastest game in the history of the world with this new clock rule. But all over the country, man, up and down, I think there's some fascinating games. But as far as picks go, love the under in Oregon State, Utah tonight, even at 44.5, because I think the Nate Johnson kid's going to play for Utah. Both these teams want to run it. Both these teams are good on defense. I still think DJU is the same DJU. I don't care what anybody says. Speaking of Akron, Buffalo, I'm telling you, Akron minus 2.5 is a great bet. I think it's a fantastic bet. I love Texas Tech and Houston, the under at 52.5. I think it's a really good bet. Tyler Shuck's out for 6 to 8 weeks for Texas Tech and Houston. I mean, God, they couldn't score if you lifted them up to the basket with the ball like they do little kids right now. Dana may be in some trouble down there. Georgia Southern minus 6.5 at home against Coastal Carolina. Look, I know these aren't the biggest games, but you're trying to make money. Like, if you're trying
dude, I've already won money on Georgia Southern this year, so I love that pick.
Yeah, so Coastal's offensive line's really struggling. I like the Golden. I like Georgia Southern, the Eagles. I always want to say Golden Eagles. I like their Southern Miss. I like them minus 6.5 too. And listen, Auburn, Georgia, under whatever it is. Whatever it is. I don't care if it's 24.5. Take the under.
Jake Crain of Crain and Company does a fantastic job. And Jake, similar to the clock rules that are making games into early, our conversations with you always into early, my friend, because they're such a blast. I appreciate you, Jake. Always a pleasure.
Hey, it's because I'm so good at that foreplay, Chris. Appreciate it, buddy. Hey, y'all have a great time. Enjoy the game this weekend, and good luck.
Yeah, man. We'll talk next week. Appreciate you. Great stuff from Jake Crain. What a legend. What a way to end that show. Guys, we're going to stay live. We've got Marc Ryan jumping in the show here in the next minute or two. Appreciate you guys, your patience with the setup. We had the the phone line setup still in play, and the phone line got kind of messed up, and the background sound was no good. So, yeah, had to get that fixed. Either way, guys, we await Marc Ryan. He will be jumping on the show at any minute now. So Jake's got Tennessee beating South Carolina in a one-score game, close competitive game. And I think everything he said was spot on, guys, with the road atmosphere, running the ball, stopping the run. It sounds very simple, but that is indeed what it will come down to yet again. South Carolina finding some balance on the offensive side. And flat out, guys, just giving Spencer Rattler some help. That'll be the question. Can the Gamecocks, is this the week they finally do it? That being said, guys, again, we've got our good friend Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Let's go ahead and get him in here. Marc Ryan does a fantastic job. Normally joins us every Thursday. He joins us Friday, and appreciate him being gracious with his time. Marc Ryan, Fan Upstate. Marc, appreciate you taking the time. How you feeling, my guy? First things first, want to make sure you're doing all right.
Oh, brother, thank you so much, man. Thank you. You know, we all got things that we deal with. You know what I'm saying? We all, especially Chris, as you get to the tender age of 22 and 23, as you get to those ages, you know, things start going a little wrong here and there from time to time. But doing all right, man. Doing all right. So appreciate you, man. Good to be back.
Well, Marc, great to see you again, my friend. I'm glad you're here and appreciate you. And obviously, we're keeping you in our thoughts and prayers. Made sure to let the folks know yesterday, hey, make sure you keep Marc Ryan in your thoughts. But again, it's great to see you.
Thank you, buddy.
Let's start the show, Marc, on this note. Give us an inside, a peek inside of what the fallout from Clemson Nation has been like this week after the loss to Florida State.
I am no longer a sports talk show host, Chris. I am now a crisis hotline counselor. I am here for all of your needs. It's just a game. It's just not that important. Please take a few steps away from the ledge. You know, the sun will rise tomorrow, and it will probably be orange when it does. Okay, that's been the mindset this week, man. It's been woo. You know, living and working in the upstate here, Chris. It's about 2/3 Clemson, 1/3 South Carolina Gamecocks, where we are, has been an estimate that I found to be pretty accurate over my 4.5 years here. It has been just an exercise in patience, in comfort, in empathy, letting folks know it will be okay. In other words, Chris, doing everything that you're not doing for the Clemson fans. Okay.
The complete opposite. I hear you.
Yeah.
Did you see the did you see the video that we posted? The call that apparently a Clemson radio station or something got about Cade Klubnik. Did you see that video?
No.
I'll send you the link after this. I highly encourage you to check it out. A guy basically calling in and berating Cade Klubnik, how he's just the worst quarterback ever. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but has there been more blame this week, would you say? And forgive me, I guess, for dancing on the graves here. I guess that's what I'm doing. But has there been more blame on Cade Klubnik or Dabo Swinney or somebody else this week for that Florida?
You know, Chris, the Cade Klubnik heat actually surprises me a little bit. I mean, he had the one play that you can't have, which is the fumble. You know, it's interesting, Chris, when you have fan bases as passionate as Clemson and South Carolina, and just so you guys know, you're the exact same people. You know, like we've come to that conclusion on our show on Offsides. You guys are exactly the same. You just wear different colors. You're not any different as people. And so fans really struggle and they get confused where it's like something comes up where you have to blame somebody. Well, Phil Maffa missed a block. On that particular play, Chris, where Clemson really had a stranglehold on the game, they're up 24-17. They're on the Florida State 29-yard line. There's less than a minute to go in the third quarter. That was a total system malfunction junction, brother. I mean, that total system. Number one, the play call had Phil Maffa blocking on what would be on that play, Cade Klubnik's blind side, because he has two reads to the left. So why do you have the running back blocking an oncoming end when Cade Klubnik is looking at 2 reads to the left side of the field. So that's on Garrett Riley. Then it's on Phil Maffa for missing the block. And then certainly, and I think most importantly, and the greatest share of blame for that play is on Cade. He's got to notice that. Like, Chris, you've got to have an awareness that, oh, bleep, my running back's over here. I better keep, I better have sensory perception here. My peripheral vision must be working here. I got to at least glance over to here to see how that's going. Chris, that's simply a play that should have never happened. But outside of that play, Chris, I actually thought Cade Klubnik had his best game, quite honestly, man. I mean, there are some stats out comparing Cade Klubnik's first 4 games, second year, to other Clemson greats. They're favorable. And while that doesn't mean that he's going to have the career that those guys do, I thought were some really, really positive signs in that game, Chris. And I thought the moment wasn't too big for him, is not being as honest as I could be.
Now, Mark, last thing on the Clemson side of things, looking at the college football slate this weekend, and, last weekend you labeled that Florida State game as sort of the boom or bust, and it was boom or bust weekend for South Carolina and Clemson. How would you label now this Syracuse game for Clemson? Because this feels like the game if something were to go awry and the Orange were to win. I mean, you talk about crushing the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the expectations of what the folks in the upstate thought was going to happen in 2023. How would you label this game for the Tigers?
I get the sense you're getting way too much enjoyment out of this, Chris.
We're on a roll, man. Like butter, we're on a roll, right?
Okay, so the loss last week, Chris, and we don't change the statements based on the results, okay? We don't reestablish the goals. 8-4 is success for South Carolina this year. 7-5 is disappointment. 6-6 or below is failure. We don't change that, okay? Now that you realize you don't have an offensive line or, after the first couple of weeks, you don't change the goal. You make the goal in the offseason. You stand by that. Chris, we said last week that game was to keep your goals for the season alive. Those goals are now done, right? You can't go to the playoff. You can't go to the national championship game. You can't win the national championship game. Not even Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber might say so you're saying there's a chance at the ACC, although they're not mathematically eliminated yet, right? So stranger things could happen, right? But if they lose this game, Chris, it's batten down the hatches. That's when you start to have empty seats in Death Valley and a fan base starting to check out. You've got to win this game. And unfortunately for Clemson, I don't want to say this as a disservice to Syracuse. I don't know if you know this, Chris. I was born in Syracuse, okay? But they're a good football team, and this is not the opponent. Like, where is the at Wake Forest game when Clemson needs it? You know what I mean? Like, it would be good for them to get out of Dodge and get away from all this negativity. But where they're going, Chris, I mean, Syracuse has the number 9 offense in the nation. Syracuse has the number 15 defense in the nation. Compare that to South Carolina's 121 offense, 121 defense, and 53 offense. Okay, Syracuse, this is a pretty good football team, and it's doing them a disservice to say Clemson could lose to Florida State twice if they're not mentally ready, because Syracuse is perfectly capable of beating them on their own.
Mark, let's turn the attention to the Gamecocks, because South Carolina did indeed win their quote-unquote boom or bust game in a bit of a thriller at Willie B. I think the game was much closer than some folks were expecting. I was not surprised by the back-and-forth nature. Felt like Mississippi State would bounce back from that embarrassing loss to LSU. It got really tight there late in the third quarter, early fourth, but South Carolina, I think, riding the wave of positive momentum from the home crowd, the support, and then, of course, another spectacular game from Spencer Rattler. Also got a running game going, but while it's not one thing, it's something else. The secondary surrendering 487 passing yards to Will Rogers. But all that matters, end of the day, you get a W you had to have. What did you see from South Carolina? Encouraging signs and just other aspects of that game from that win last Saturday.
Yeah, I haven't seen this point discussed much, Chris, but there is a huge shining light for the Gamecocks. Remember how last year, or all offseason, Chris, we were talking about you're not going to be the only team in America. sub 100 in rush offense and rush defense and have a winning record again. Well, guess what that rush defense is right now? Number 48. They're in the top 50 in rush defense. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care that Mississippi State prefers to throw it all over the pitch, as the old ball coach would say, right? You are stopping the run at a much more effective rate than you did previously. Furthermore, like I'm looking at some total numbers, all right? Clemson has the number 8 total defense, number 21 total offense. Florida has the number 5 total defense, number 55 total offense. Tennessee, number 27, number 24. South Carolina is 2-2 with the 121st total defense and the 53rd total offense. Have you ever seen a coach more able to make chicken salad out of chicken shit than what Shane Beamer's doing? I mean, Chris, it's unbelievable. Okay? And I'm not saying the players themselves are that, but the way they've played, 2-2, the way that they've performed this year, 2-2 is the best you could ever hope for with those numbers. Shane Beamer is establishing himself as a coach who gets more out of less, and he does so more often than any other coach in college football. The offense, outside of Rattler, has been mediocre. The defense has been flat bad. They're 2-2, with many people thinking the Gamecocks have a great chance this weekend. Do you disagree with anything that I just said?
No. I mean, listen, if you just present those numbers, yeah, I think 2-2 is about the best you could expect. And I would not have expected a 10-point loss at Georgia with those numbers. So to your point, I do think it's interesting that South Carolina is so much better at this point against the run, yet the total defense is so bad. That is what really surprises me. Mark, if you'd have told me that before the season the Gamecocks would be where they are in run defense, I would have thought the defense is taking a step forward, taking strides forward. But I think the issues in the secondary are much greater than what we originally thought. And, I will say, too, give credit to the schedule, the quarterbacks they've played. But we knew this was the case. It's why I said all summer that if you can just go 3-3 or better in the first 6, that is a bit of a victory, because there's going to be some growing pains early on when you lose a pair of NFL corners like South Carolina did, amongst other pieces on the defense as well. That being said, Mark, you take that into Knoxville and a Tennessee team that your Florida Gators obviously dismantled in the swamp. And outside of that, I mean, Tennessee, you mentioned those numbers. They look good. Their front seven's been really good. They're one of the best in the country at getting after the quarterback. But their wins, Mark, are over Virginia, Austin Peay, and UTSA. So I think the question is this: who is Tennessee really? Obviously, having this game at home under the lights, that's a huge beneficial factor for the Volunteers. We've heard all season, Mark, the talks of revenge, this being a revenge game. How do you see this one playing out? Do you think the revenge factor, the revenge comes to fruition for Tennessee?
I'm going to give you something, Chris, I'm not revealing until my show. I think Tennessee wins 26-23, but I would not at all be surprised if the Gamecocks win this game. And the only reason the Tennessee has a chance is because it's at home and at night in this game. They've got so much to figure out, man. They've got so much still to figure out. They have not figured out a way to replace Hooker, Tillman, or Hyatt, and that is reflected in what you see. And, what good is a howitzer of an arm that Joe Milton has if you can't harness it, Chris? And they haven't been able to do that up until this point of this year. What you're hoping for, if you're a Gamecock fan, is to see in the first quarter, whoa, we've got a huge advantage in the passing game, and our line is holding up, right? That's what you want to see. I don't know if we're ever going to get to the point where Shane Beamer said, y'all are going to be apologizing to the offensive line, or I'm paraphrasing for him, by the end of the year. But they are doing better. They are faring better than they have. There is some semblance of a running game. The run defense, as we said, is better. You got a team, Tennessee, that's figuring itself out and is relying on 106,000 screaming fans to will them to victory. I think it's going to be an incredibly tight game. And the only reason the Gamecocks come out on the short end of the stick is because of the aforementioned piss-poor defensive ranking and a night game, Neyland Stadium at Tennessee. Looking ahead just a wee bit here, Chris, in life, there are reasons and there are excuses. Okay. This is going to be part of my coverage of Florida, South Carolina. All right. But do you think, Chris, it's legitimate? Have you ever heard of this? Florida has 3 straight opponents coming off a bye. 3 straight. Like, dude, is that just or fair or right to you? The first one is South Carolina. The next one is Georgia. The next one after that is Arkansas. 3 straight. And guys, you get an opponent's best shot after a bye, right? Like they're their freshest, they're their best. They've had 2 weeks to game plan. So you guys are going to say, as a Florida fan, I'm making excuses. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to cover that game with you guys or on my airwaves as a fan. I'm going to cover it from point A to point B. And the Gamecocks having a bye and Florida not is one of the reasons I'm picking the Gamecocks to win that game. So, Chris, I do think, correct me if, okay, you got Tennessee, Chris, and then is Florida next?
Yes, so it's Tennessee, then the bye, then the Gators.
And then Florida. Okay. I do think South Carolina will be 3-3 after those 2 games.
And to your point, Mark, by the way, South Carolina, I believe the number is 14-1 since 2009, coming off of a bye week. So to your
Thanks,
point,
Chris.
the Gamecocks
I wasn't depressed about that game enough already.
Hey, we'll talk about it a lot more the week of the Florida game. That'll be a lot of fun, by the way. I can't wait for that. But you know, to your point, Mark, going back about, I think your comments on the Tennessee game really, really interesting. Let me ask you this, though, and I'm not saying that Tennessee is the only game that provides this opportunity. I look at a game like a Tennessee. I look at a game like at Texas A&M. I look at a game even at Missouri, the Clemson game, for example. But we've made the point many times. This is year 3 for Shane Beamer. This is the are you going to pop year for Shane Beamer. This Tennessee game feels like one that if you're going to make that pop, if you're going to announce to the world that, like, you and your program are on the rise, like, does this feel like a game to you where if you can steal this one in Knoxville, like you're kind of going to be making that announcement? If you're a long way to go, but I think this one would go a long way in sort of kicking that door down, if you will.
A win for the Gamecocks and the 4th place in year 1 in the East, 3rd place in year 2 in the East, 2nd place in year 3 in the East is very possible. It also eliminates Tennessee from that consideration. I think Missouri is going to fall off a little bit on their own as the season wears along. So then it becomes South Carolina, Florida, and Kentucky for 2nd in the East. And guess who has both of those opponents at home? Oh, by the way, you're wearing a hat for them right now. Look at that. So, yeah,
Indeed,
Chris,
Mark,
you win this game.
Yeah.
You win this game, 2nd in the East is in your sights. How would that be? Think about how you felt about this team after the performance against North Carolina. And then think about how you'll feel after a Tennessee potential win where, you know, good gosh, Beamer could really do it. With 121st ranked defense and 53rd ranked offense, they got a shot to finish 2nd in the SEC East. You don't want to be the coach, Chris, that gets less out of more. Jimbo Fisher knows what that feels like right now, okay? You want to be the coach who gets more out of less, and Beamer is very much in that class.
And those numbers, like you mentioned, Mark, certainly reflect that. Let's move to the rest of the SEC, Mark, and we'll start with the Florida Gators. Kentucky, Florida in Lexington. I'm fascinated at this game, Mark, because this feels like one that, you know, Florida, the big win over Tennessee. They slept walk through the Charlotte game, whatever, ho-hum. Kentucky's 4-0, but who have they played? I think we're going to learn a lot about both these teams tomorrow.
I don't want to hear anybody call out any other school for their non-conference schedule until you look at the straight garbage Kentucky schedules year after bleeping year. And I've had Kentucky people on the show, and they're like, totally will defend Coach Stoops here. There's no reason to do that when you play in the SEC. Their strategy, and to show you, Chris, that they feel like they've hit their ceiling there, their goal every year is to go 8-4, 4-0 in the non-conference, 4-4 in the SEC. And they schedule like that. They schedule like a fledgling program just trying to make a bowl game. It's freaking pathetic, okay? Despite playing the island of misfit toys for their first 4 games of the year, Chris, they have the number 20 overall defense, which is pretty decent. They have the number 64 overall total offense. Florida's played a more difficult schedule. Florida's got a top 5 defense right now. Remember how bad Florida was on defensively last year? Chris, in your experience, in your opinion, is it more the Jimmies and the Joes or the X's and O's? I would have always been a Jimmies and the Joes guys until I saw what Austin Armstrong is doing with this cast of merrymen who sucked a year ago at Florida. They sucked. Now they're playing top 5 defense, and they played Utah, and they played Tennessee, and they've got a top 5 defense in America. And so even though Florida's problem is that Billy Napier stubbornly will not hand over the reins of offensive coordinator to a true OC, resulting in Florida kind of shutting down shop in the second half when they have leads, creating a somewhat embarrassing 5 field goal day against Charlotte last week. The defense is one of those that's good enough to keep them in every game. They're essentially the reverse of South Carolina, Chris. Rattler's good enough to keep them in every game. Florida's defense is good enough to keep them in every game. And it's just like, man, can Florida's offense give them enough? Can South Carolina's defense give them enough?
Mark, to your point, I'm more of a belief in the Jimmies and Joes versus the X's and O's most times. But I think South Carolina last year, this year is also a great case study in that it's like it's the same quarterback and some very, for the most part, a lot of the same supporting cast pieces, if not less proven pieces, and the offense is worlds
Chris,
better than it was a season ago. And
how do you explain Florida top 5 defense?
I think Austin Armstrong. I think there's a reason he got that vote of confidence from Nick Saban to come on his defensive staff, and I think Billy Napier saw that and nabbed him, and I think it was a good decision because Florida is for real on the defensive side of the football. Mark, the best of the rest in the SEC and also college football. Again, I think it's a fascinating Saturday because, we do like SEC power rankings or power rankings on a weekly basis, and we're trying to guess who's the 4th best team, 5th best team, 7th best. Like, we're going to learn this week with those games, like I mentioned, Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, A&M, Ole Miss, LSU, even Missouri, Vanderbilt, if you will. And then throughout the rest of the college football, we got some great games lined up. What are you most looking forward to in the SEC and college football as a whole from this slate?
You know what, man? I want to see what kind of effort the Fighting Coach Primes come out with, right? I want to see that. Am I expecting a win? No. Guess whose defensive ranking is lower than South Carolina's? Colorado's, right? I continue to be fascinated with the job. One of the most unheralded, underrated stories of the year, Chris, has been Oregon State and Washington State, like left for dead, and look what they're doing. They might as well be wearing shirts every day that say F around and find out. Okay. Because the sporting world effed around with them and they're finding out just what they have to offer this year. Chris, look, man, you give me a game that you like, I'll give you some quick thoughts. But by the way, I'll be on CBS Sports Radio tomorrow, noon to 5. So I'll be on the first game and a half set, getting everyone set. It is fun to do a scoreboard show, Chris. You're kind of doing, it's a mix of your own topics, but also keeping people, favorite word in the English dictionary, abreast of what is going on throughout all the scores. It's really cool.
Marc Ryan of the Fan Upstate. Mark, one last thing before I get you out of here. I'm going to just give you the floor. Explain to me this Ronald Acuna take that took Twitter by storm, because we got a lot of Braves fans that tune in. Explain to me this Ronald Acuna take.
Yeah, Chris, I imagine you agree with me on it, okay? All of a sudden, you got Braves fans coming out of the woodwork saying, first 70-40 guy. Okay. You've got announcers making fun of this nationwide because it's like, is that a stat now? 70-40? Okay, he's the only one. Well, why is he the only one? He's the only one because MLB changed the rules that have resulted in a 41.2% increase in stolen bases throughout the league, to which people come back and say, yeah, but now they're on par with stolen base numbers from the 1980s and the 1960s. Yeah, but guess what didn't happen then? It was never easier to steal a base than it is right now. Stolen base rates back then were 73, 74%. Now they're 81%, Chris. 81%. So what I am going to say is that Ronald Acuna Jr. is a transcendent athlete. And you've been at this long enough to know, Chris, that it doesn't matter if you say nice things in a post If you say one thing that a fan base doesn't like, that's all they're going to harp on. Ronald Acuna Jr. is having a historic season. He is a transcendent athlete. But what he's done is become the latest member of the 40-40 club. Okay? This 40-70 stuff is a bunch of bunk. And anybody who covers the sports knows it. Okay? And that's not his fault, right? They say don't blame the player, blame the game. That's not his fault. Okay? That's what the game did. All right? But it's a bunch of hooey. And Major League Baseball should take a blowtorch to its record book, because you talk to 10 different people, Chris, you get 10 different answers for who the all-time home run king is, who the all-time this is, all-time that is. And yet they clutch those pearls, even though the records don't mean anything anymore. The all-time hits king is not in the Hall of Fame. The all-time home run king is not in the Hall of Fame. What good is your record book if that is the case? 40-70 my ass.
Marc Ryan, I respect the passion, and it's why Offsides with Marc Ryan is the show that it is. Offsides with Marc Ryan. Marc Ryan on air on Twitter. And Marc, again, let the folks know one more time, number one, where they can check out your show, but number two, you're hosting CBS Sports Radio on a national level tomorrow. Let them know where they can check that out and when you'll be live on air.
Do you mind if I get to a couple of these comments here real quick?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Brian Alexander says, Mark, Clemson will win this week. I agree. Chris, do you?
I do. I think Clemson will bounce back. Yeah.
Corey Bridges says, Mark, you left your Clemson shirt on. Corey, I don't own a Clemson shirt. Okay, this is Florida colors. Okay, I'm not jersey wearing guy. This is kind of as close as I get. If we could get 2 in a row against Tennessee and Clemson, it's a whole nother level for SC. So says Michael Lynn. Michael, you got a legitimate shot. Let's see here. Justin says, Mark, you got to watch it. The clip was legend. Wait for it, Dairy. Chris, will you send me that clip so I can use it on the show?
I will. Yes.
Can you private message me
it
that?
It is. It's wild. It's wild.
I'll air it on, and that came from the Dabo Collins show.
I think I'm not exact. So Action Network posted it. I'll send it over to you. I'm not exactly sure, honestly. I have to imagine it came from like a Clemson post-game call-in show or something of that nature. So I doubt it's from the Dabo. I don't think it'd be from the Dabo show.
I got you. Brian Alexander says Clemson can only play for a bowl game. Brian, if you actually look at analytics, a lot of the teams that Clemson would have to hop to get back in the ACC race are projected to lose more than 2 games. If those projections hold out, the thing that has the longest odds of happening at this point is Clemson winning out. So if you're Clemson, just focus on winning out, right? And then you see if the other chips fall where they may, because the odds say they will if Clemson is just able to win out. Brian Alexander says, Duke, Florida State, Tar Heels, too much competition in the ACC. The problem for Clemson was the Duke game. You know, you can't drop that game. Marion says, Mark, are you coming to the Florida game at Willie B? I might be having a CBS show that week, Marion. I have been to Willie B. I did survive the experience. I went in under the cloud of darkness. No, I'm just kidding. I went as a member of the Florida band, believe it or not, back in the day. I have been to Willie B. You don't want to know the score of that game if you're a Gamecock fan, though. Teams can get better as you go. Brian Alexander says nothing is set in stone, and we're seeing that in Columbia. Lynn Turner says, go Cox, beat the Vols. Just say no to Rocky Top. See you post-game. Lynn, I wish you the best of luck. You got a legitimate shot. I'm only going Vols because it's at home and it's at night, 26-23. Reverend Ryan, always preaching the truth. Love it. Braddock, I appreciate you guys. Invite you to follow me on Twitter at Marc Ryan on air. That's at MARC Ryan on air. It's things like this that, you know, like the interactivity that we do with our show. It has us calling our show the most interactive sports show anywhere. Tomorrow, I have the great privilege, ladies and gentlemen. Like, do you know how amazing this is for me? Like a lifelong dream to be able to host nationally for CBS Sports Radio. I'm going to be on over 350 stations nationwide. I'm going to be on right in the heart of a college football Saturday. Sometimes people say to me, Mark, are you bummed that you have to work during the games? Are you kidding me? That's the greatest honor we could ever have. Do Troy Aikman and Joe Buck work on Thanksgiving? They do, right? It's the greatest honor we could ever have. So how do you listen to that? You can download the Odyssey app, AUDACY. There's an affiliate in Columbia for CBS Sports Radio. I want to say it's The Game, Chris. So, but it's on 350 stations nationwide. Also, you can stream cbssportsradio.com. But if the easiest way, without having do we have a station here that has it on? Odyssey app, AUDACY, and search CBS Sports Radio, and I will be there living out my dream, guys. It is an honor to be able to do so. It's an honor to be on with you, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Mark, I was going to say congrats to you and the success, my friend. It's well deserved, and we will definitely be tuned in, locked in, and like you said, when our work is play, it is a pleasure to get after it on game day. So I know you guys will most certainly.
They pay us for this, Chris. Can you believe this? They pay us for this. Yeah. For what? For what? This? please don't tell them this really isn't work. Okay? Please don't tell them that. I've had jobs that are really work. It ain't this. Okay?
Same.
It ain't this. Have a great one, brother.
Mark, you're the man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Great stuff, guys, from Marc Ryan. And with that, the show will conclude. Guys, thank you all so much. Be sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon so you get notifications of when we go live and we drop the video content. Of course, guys, you want to be notified when we go live tomorrow night for the A1 Air Quality Consultants post-game call-in show after South Carolina and Tennessee do battle at Neyland. Also, of course, guys, check out the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, guys. Daily podcasts dropping Monday through Friday, and even the post-game call-in show drops in audio form, podcast form, if you will, every Sunday morning. Guys, with that being said, appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you all so much. Gamecocks beat Tennessee, and we will talk to you all tomorrow night after the game in Knoxville.